Sitting here with Officer Michael Evan, who has served as a school resource officer for quite a long time and has really gotten to know the nuances of this place. And you've really gotten to see the growth and development of what a student is from the young age all the way up to the high school. You spend most of your time here at the high school, so you get to see them. But where are you seeing a majority of the conflicts arise, and what forms of conflicts are they looking like?
It seems like most of them come from students that have not properly been taught to resolve their conflicts. Most of it is just a difference in personality or perspective. It can be over personal preferences or their emotions being tweaked by somebody's actions. But there's quite a few different reasons why somebody would begin to escalate a conflict or cause a conflict.
I talked earlier with our counselor, Sarah Dill, and we're sitting here in our 40s, so we're in a teenager's world. We're old. We grew up in the 1900s, as they like to say, and we didn't have social media.
Right.
So, what kind of aspect are you seeing? What kind of role is social media playing in the lives of these kids these days? And then, how do the conflicts start there, escalate there, and ultimately either conclude or find a lack of conclusion?
Well, that's very true. The social media is a huge instigator. A lot of these conflicts actually start on social media, escalate there, and then come to school with those students. The students a lot of times are not communicating well over social media. It is a much more difficult platform to communicate your true intentions. And then when they get in front of each other, emotions are already raised, and it's almost too late to stop the conflict.
Where are you seeing your fellow SROs at the various campuses here at the high school and then all the way down to the lower elementaries? Where are you seeing them play a role in educating students how to properly conclude or resolve these conflicts?
A lot of times just having the SRO present causes the student to take the first necessary step, and that is to pause, to reflect. If the emotions are too high, then that won't happen, or if there isn't an authority figure close by, a lot of the students will jump straight to action. By having law enforcement or an authority role nearby, a lot of the students do pause and try to process the best way to get through that. But short of an authority person being present, a authority figure being present, a lot of times the students will tend to go towards a physical confrontation rather than a verbal reaction or working it out verbally instead.
So if we've got some kids who, again, we're sitting here in our post high school years, but again, influencing the next generation, trying to come up with some strategies that you would suggest to a student or a teenager or a child in the elementary realm that they could utilize when a conflict arises. What strategies would you suggest for them?
Well, a lot of it actually starts before a conflict ever comes up. So I would recommend them mentally walking through what that conflict would look like. What would be a reason why they would have conflict? What would the subject matter be? What areas of their lives would cause them to have conflict? And if they've ever thought through that process, and especially if they've had a chance to think through that process with a mentor, then when that occasion arises, they're not caught off guard. They're less likely to go straight into their emotions. They're mentally prepared and equipped for that situation.
If they notice that they're in a tired situation, or like you're talking about in a mental situation to where I can handle this or I can't handle this, what have you seen with students who have chosen the right course of action to resolve a conflict, and then how have you seen those decisions kind of pay off as that child grows up and develops?
A lot of the students who are most successful in dealing with conflict are not going to be overly emotional in those situations. They either know to stop and take a breath, or they take advantage of the tools that the school has provided by having teachers, principals, and SROs close. They can use us as those tools, as we were meant to be, to assist them, give them time to work through those conflicts before it escalates.
So if you've got a mentor or a parent or a guardian out there that has a positive influence over any student or a, young person, and they're kind of sitting there thinking, well, what strategies could you give me to help with this growing individual? Because you think about back when you were 12, 13 years old, you probably didn't make the absolute best decisions as
Sure.
you would now, but how can these adults that are in the lives of these students help with the progression and the development that they get before they become adults?
I think just walking through the process with them, just talking to them about the new emotions, walking through the process of de-escalation. If you don't talk about it, if it's not brought up beforehand, then in that moment, physical confrontation sometimes feels like the only way to resolve it. But having something brought up and walked through step by step ahead of time gives them a solid foundation. It gives them the tools that they need to avoid that conflict or keep it from arising past just a verbal interaction.
We talk about consequences a lot, and most of the time, if you're under the age of 16, you think of a consequence that's a punishment, that's some kind of discipline that's coming your way. But consequences can be positive and negative. What are some of the positive and negative consequences that come along with proper and improper management of conflict resolution?
Well, I think that managing the conflict in a positive manner empowers that student. They gain confidence. They walk away with the feeling of, hey, I have the mental capacity and the emotional maturity to navigate through these difficult times and places. Without that, I think that they continue to experience a higher level of emotional stress or mental stress because they don't feel prepared or confident.
What are some of and these are, the obvious things that are there that, we tend to just assume everybody knows, but what are some of the negative consequences that will happen here at school? And then even for some of our older students could go beyond just the school consequences in a negative manner.
Right. So for the most part, in the students that are under the age of 18, they will face consequences on the school correction level. And that's going to be anywhere from just a few days or sometimes a week or even a calendar year away from school. Sometimes a couple of days away from a environment will give them the time to process that. So that can be good for them. And they shouldn't necessarily take that as an entirely negative situation because they obviously weren't ready and they need some of that time to process and learn how to deal with that. On the students that are over the age of 18, that pretty rapidly falls into the law enforcement category. And it empowers us to treat those students as adults, and they will face consequences that could be fines or even jail time. And we try to speak with them and educate them ahead of time so that they don't reach that level.
Here in Clinton, we put a lot of emphasis on excellence. And so a lot of times there can be a lot of pressure of, I've got to be perfect. I've got to not step out of line. I've got to do these things. What would you say to the student and the parent as we're journeying together through this age of development before they become adults? If they're seeing a slight change for the better in behavior, or if they're seeing a slight change in the negative for behavior, what advice would you give to these students and adults as they journey through this time of growing and maturing?
I would say just make use of the tools that are around you. The administrators and SROs are there to help guide and educate these students through difficult situations, and they are going to have questions. They're going to face situations and experiences that they're not quite ready for, and them understanding that we're there to help them and to guide them, I think will take a lot of the apprehension out of that experience. Many times students come to a school and they see an administrator or they see an SRO and they have a little bit of fear because it's an authority figure. But if we can get them into the mindset that we're here to help them and guide them, not just to have a negative interaction with them, I think that can also empower them to learn much more instead of just feeling like we're out to get them all the time.